Good morning, everybody. I'd like to introduce you to my pebble. This pebble is a funny size. It's very thin, not much colour. But if I drop it in a pond of rippling water, the ripples far exceed the size of this pebble. Our lives are the same. When we take an action, the action we take, however great or small, far exceeds our immediate circle. Today, I'd like to take a moment to share when I and others around me have thrown a pebble into the waters of our society and brought about some positive change. On the 8th of March, I celebrated International Women's Day with 5,000 other women and girls from many parts of the world at the Albert Hall. 5,000 pebbles, all calling for a difference, for a change. My journey started in 1963 when I started my nurse training, and I changed from miniskirts and rock festivals to wearing a uniform that was measured from the ground up. Big, stiff starched hat and a matron who made sure we were indoors at 10 p.m. at night, unless we got away with it. This training has helped me many times throughout my life in the various things I've had to face. I did a further 1 year of a theatre training to be an operating theatre nurse, and then I took off for a working holiday in New York City to visit my Irish family. Already 2 of them had gone to fight in the Vietnam War. 2 pebbles trying to make a difference, however sad. One day while I was in the operating theatre in New York City, we heard the notification that Martin Luther King, the civil rights leader, had been assassinated. The instruments paused for a second, and we looked round at all the sorrow and everybody's faces behind the masks. Several years later, I thought of that same group of colleagues as I heard that the United States had elected their first African-American president of color, Barack Obama. I returned to London and was fortunate to get a job in an operating theatre with pioneering open-heart surgeons. Now, we can look around and see this is a routine procedure in many hospitals. At the same time, I noticed that the nursing profession was not moving on in what I felt was the right direction. It was still very much a vocational, all-women's profession, and there was only availability for full-time work. So I started a company offering nurses part-time positions. And gradually, I encouraged the hospitals near us to also accept part-time nurses from us. And after a trial, they decided to hire their own part-time staff. Now we can see that many jobs, most of them in the National Health Service, can be done on a part-time basis, and women have more equality in the employment world of the National Health. At the same time as this, there was a new formal training coming in for child social workers, and I was able to offer local authorities, children's homes, properly professional trained social workers. Currently, at the same moment, Esther Ransom was setting up a new 24-hour telephone hotline for children in need called Childline, and we provided the first 4 social workers. One day, a friend from sailing invited me to go on a trip to deliver aid to Kosovo. I joined my fellow driver on a service station on the M25, and we, together with 15 other vehicles, ambulances, fire tenders, headed off across Europe for war-torn Kosovo. The first memory I have was driving through the lanes of Kosovo, seeing mass graves on either side of the road. With the aid of a volunteer, a local volunteer, another pebble, we were able to deliver our aid. And it was in one building that we stopped, that we went into a building that had no glass in the windows, no running water, no electricity. And the people were huddled in 2 rooms. On returning to the UK, 2 of our drivers, an electrician and a plumber, collected their utensils or their whatever they need to do repairs, and went back to Kosovo and connected up all the utilities. 2 people 2 pebbles who made an incredible difference in that community. More recently, in recent years, I have spent valuable time with a group of weekend volunteers from Brighton who went to Calais to support refugees. The first time I approached the Calais jungle, while waiting to have my passport checked at the camp gate by a guard, I noticed that Steve Jobs' picture, painted by Banksy, was on the wall behind the guard. And I remembered that his father was a Syrian refugee. The group of volunteers that went from Brighton consisted of builders, carpenters, medics, and many other support volunteers, and one special person, in my view, called Ben, who took his football. What better way to get to know smaller, younger refugees? One day, when I was doing triage, a lady donated a box of artwork and papers and colouring pencils. And soon after, a child came in who didn't speak any English, so I gave him some paper and some colouring pens and went in search of a translator. When I returned, this little boy had painted a helicopter, a gun, an Afghan flag, and a big sun. Now, at that moment, I had every item of my clothes on because it was so freezing and cold in this camp, and there was this big sun that this little boy had had to leave behind. We saw many more young people like this, thanks to Ben with his football, and so the weekend group of volunteers decided to change track, and instead of providing medical help, they provided support in linguists, play therapists, and psychologists, and dealt with the young refugees in the camp. And this went on for quite some time until it was found that there was a real need for a proper charity to be set up to provide this ongoing help. And here in Brighton, we have a charity called Hummingbird that provides broad support for young, unaccompanied refugees. Last week, I helped to send off 100 banana boxes full of aid to Ukraine. And I thought back to June 2022, when one person, one pebble, put up 4 posters in the village. And this has created an ongoing group of people who've come together to provide aid. And one point that I remember particularly about this is there was a group of ladies and men who had knitted and crocheted blankets and jumpers for children. And last year, one of the ladies had had a severe stroke, and her aim was to get back to fitness, to be able to finish the last square in her blanket. 2 weeks ago, she completed that blanket. As I reflect back through these stories, going back 6 decades, I can see that the thread going through all the stories is really powerful action taken by one individual, not a big group, not a planning council, but one person putting a pebble in a pond. So where will your pebble land next? I'd like to leave you with a quote from Donna Ashworth in Growing Brave. Just begin. We would not immediately embrace, the world will not immediately embrace your contribution, but the universe will, and she needs your help now.